Hello and welcome. Today we're going to learn more about Microsoft Access, the relational database system from Microsoft. Very simple to use, very powerful. Um, Usually you have to pay, but it's affordable. Many people have access to it through work or school. It's easy to get going. We've done 2 lessons already. I'll leave a link to the previous lesson. Leave a link to first lesson in case you haven't seen any before. But today we're going to do some stuff, some extraneous stuff that has to do with making data available to you. We're going to learn today how to import tables from outside of Access so you don't have to create your own tables. First 2 lessons we actually created tables. Most of the time you're going to work with tables that have already been created, but I wanted you to understand how the system worked. When you import data, you can import data to a new table, which you specify, or you can append data to an existing table. When you do either of those, you have to learn about something called primary keys, which is the way by which a table is organized so that the database can keep track of all the data and make certain there's no duplication. So here's a table in Excel, very simple. It's airplanes. I don't know anything about airplanes, but I just made this up. But what matters is that it's in a flat file, and we have a unique frame number for each plane, the make of the plane. You notice there are 2 of one kind, model, number of seats, etc. Who owns it? A misspelled mortgagor. And it's just a simple several fields of table, which would be a basic table in a database, which you would combine, when you link to other tables and you could run queries on, uh, which Cessna planes are owned by Nations Bank, and maybe there's um, a different table with insurance or a different table with regulatory oversight. So this one just has very basic data on 4 planes. And of course, row 1 in the Excel spreadsheet is the column headings that you will see when we create a table in Access. With spreadsheets, you don't normally the first row is the column names. That's not the case with Access. Column names will be on top. They won't be part of the numbered rows. So here's the Access landing sheet. You've opened Access. And we're going to select the New Data Source button under the External Data part of the ribbon. So go to External Data and then New Data Source. And it's going to ask what kind of data you want. You're going to select from File. In this instance, Excel. Could be Excel's what you're likely going to use. You could use CSV, which is comma-separated variables or values. Those are very common. They are more basic than Excel spreadsheets, can be read by other products. It's easier to transfer and process, through different systems. They're not proprietary to Excel, and of course you can export Excel files in CSV, which is a generic format readable by many more products, including, of course, Access. And so we've selected, go to Excel, select an Excel file, then you're going to select an Excel file out of the file finder that comes up. Planes you will see is in the Documents folder. And this is where you specify where the first field at the top, you pick out the sheet you want, and it goes into file names. Then you have 3 options: import source data into a new table, append copy of the records to the table, meaning existing table, you add records. Third one is link data source by creating a link. We're not going to deal with link tables. Again, here they are. You've selected the table you want through the browse feature. And first off, we're going to import the source data into a new table. Later on, we'll do some appending of data into an existing table. But we're sorting, in this case, we're importing a new table. And so after you've hit OK, this is what comes up. This is the same table. So this is the Excel table that we saw, and this is the same table once we've gotten it to the spreadsheet wizard in Access. See, same table. And once we've got it to the import manager in Access, you'll see one moment. You will see the first row is column headings of the data, column headings of the table in Excel, soon to be the column headings in Access. And the other rows are the table data. And since we are creating a new table, what we do is specify first row contains column headings, that little checkbox up top. That says since we are importing a new table, we have to import the headings first. And you will see the headings have moved from the table data. Headings have moved from being table data to being headings. They're now grayed out. And now we have a little database table. You will have the ability in this instance to alter the information in each column. You can change the field name if you want at this instance. Field name, the column name, the column heading. Change that in this instance. You can change the data type. And you can skip importing one or another columns if you wish at this point. You could do that earlier by eliminating columns that you import, but you can skip certain fields or columns at this time. We're not doing any of that here. We're just importing the table as it appeared in the Excel spreadsheet. The next question that Access will ask you is about a primary key. The previous table, each row is unique because the frame numbers are unique, even though the makes are not unique. There's two rows which contain the same make. There's two rows of the engine type that contain the same engine type. Two rows of the mortgager that contain the same mortgage holder. But luckily in this instance, the data is such that every table is clearly unique. Sometimes you will have the same information entered more than once in the database because you will have coincidences. You will have, one row will designate a red car with a Missouri registration, and the owner is a female who's born in Iowa. And you might have another instance, the exact same thing from a totally different car. You need a way to distinguish them. To do that, you add a primary key. Database software understands this and automatically adds the primary key, or gives you the option to choose your own primary key. You could choose no primary key. That's unwise, except for the very smallest of databases. We didn't use much of a primary key in the previous ones because there's only a few rows. But no serious database exists without a primary key. You choose a primary key which will be in its own column, usually all the way over to the left. It's kind of like a row number, but it's not a row number. because in relational databases, rows get shifted around all the time. You don't really consult the underlying table, so the rows don't have to be in a particular order. You tend to consult a view or a query of a table. So the only thing that matters is the primary key is usually a number or a number-letter pair, which distinguishes the row from anything else. And Access will add a column and add a primary key of its own choosing, unless you choose your own primary key. The important thing about primary keys, the primary key column, Access in this instance has chosen the name ID as the primary key column name. Primary keys do not repeat. They're always unique. That assures that every row is unique. They should not contain information extraneous to their function as primary key. Namely, should not have a primary key which carries information about the table. So, for example, if you have a part number and you have thousands of parts, each part is a different part number, that's fine. That could be a primary key, except sometimes part numbers contain relevant information. They might contain information about the year or the location the thing came from, or when it was made, or the serial number of the model, in which case they kind of contain semantic information relevant to the table. That's not a good idea because these primary key helps its only function is to distinguish the table, distinguish the row uniquely. So primary keys are usually very simple. They're alphanumeric, and they do not contain information that can be used. They're neutral to information in the table. Primary keys will get out of order all the time. They're not row numbers. And so they should only should be to function as a unique identifier. Okay, so we've selected the table out of the file chooser, and we selected that we wanted to add the column headings as column headings. We specified that Excel will create a primary key, and now we got to name the table in the database. It has the Excel file has a table. The Excel file has a name, but now the table has to have a name. It can be anything you wish. It has to be distinguished from every other table. And we named this one Airframe. It's just last thing is save import steps. Eventually, this will become a very automated and routine kind of thing. We're not going to worry about that right now, though. But you want to save your import steps because, once you get more involved, because it's much quicker to import new tables. And the result is the original spreadsheet data is now in the database as a table. There's the original table. There's the original spreadsheet in Excel. And here it is identically in Access. Column headings there. Make column headings in the four particular rows for the four particular airplanes. And now you can query it. You can add stuff. You can do whatever other table operations you do with Microsoft Access. And then what you want to do is append. So instead of choosing import source data into new table, we're choosing append copy of records to the existing table. And so we have to select the table that we're going to use in Access, that we're going to append to. Then we have to select the table from which we're bringing the data in. And it's just like importing a new table, except it will be fussier because since there's already an existing table structure in Access, the spreadsheet you import to import from has to have the same structure. Let's go to Access. We have the airframe table that we imported. We're going to close it. It needs to be closed before we do any importing. And here's the table we're going to import from. It's called Other Planes. You could import from the same table that you imported the other data from, but you've got to make certain not to import data that you already imported. So oftentimes you'll have a new inputs table in Excel with all the new inputs that you've put in, and that will be the source of your updating the table in Access. But notice the column headings are exactly the same in both. So let's go to Access, go to the Create ribbon, and we're going to external data action. External data, new data source from File, Excel. Browser, we're going to select Other Planes, but we're going to append a copy of the records. We're appending them to the Access table airframe. Notice, since we're appending, it has already done the work of separating out the column headings, so there's no danger of them being imported into the body of the table. We select the table we want them appended to. Table is closed, so we have to open it. And there are our tables. There are our added tables. The primary keys here are off a little because I imported some stuff before and then deleted it. And so these primary keys are the next ones indexed. It's a slight error on my part. If this was a table that didn't have any data imported, the next primary keys would be 7 and 8. So that's appending. It's much simpler than adding a new table, because you don't have to edit any of the columns. You don't have to change the names. In fact, you have to make certain the data information is congruent between the origin and destination tables. So thank you for watching. Today we imported a new table into Excel because although you can sit around and create new tables, and I wanted to show you how that was done, most of the time you're harvesting organizational data that's already been used elsewhere, already been done elsewhere, and you are just importing tables that already exist and arraying them for the database to process in its own unique way. We learned about the primary key. Primary key is the way that each row is kept unique by adding a unique identifier. Primary key is not a row number, although it kind of functions as a row number in some ways. Primary key can be rearranged in the table. Rows in the table can be rearranged. Doesn't really matter because you view most of the time you view the data, you won't be viewing it from the table. You'll be viewing it through queries or views. Primary key should not contain information which is part of the database. It should be the information content in the primary key should be limited to its function as a positioner and unique identifier for the row. And then we appended data to an existing table, and to do that you just have to make certain that the origin and destination table are identical. And you, of course, run the risk of appending duplicate data if you accidentally re-import the same table twice. So next time maybe we'll do some joins. There are different types of joins, and you join two tables together and they become virtually a single table, and then you can query that. And then when the query is over, the drawing undoes and the information reverts to the state where it was in two separate tables, making it safer to handle. So thank you for watching, and I'll put a card up for the next lecture. Have a good night.